that they now have a president who, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and when I say I'm not going to do it, I won't. And we need to have that kind of certainty in the Oval Office again, not this president who vacillates and wrings his hands with this feckless foreign policy that he and Hillary Clinton have put together that have made America weaker, less of a leader around the world, and created conflict all over the world. We have more conflict today than we've had at any time in my recent memory. Second, on tax and regulatory reform, we need to get our economy moving again. We need to get it growing at 4%, not at 2%. That's the only way we're going to deal with the long-term debt in this country, and the only way we're going to get opportunities to grow again so that our kids have a possibility of jobs. You know, Mary Pat and I went to college together. That's where we met. I graduated in 1984. She graduated in 1985. Sorry, I had to tell them. But here's the thing. That was in the middle of Ronald Reagan's presidency. Neither one of us were worried about getting a job. It wasn't were we going to get a job, it was what job were we going to take? Which was the best offer for our career and our future? The economy was growing amazingly because Ronald Reagan did some things that made sense. He lowered our dependence on regulation in this economy, didn't have the government picking the winners and losers, and he lowered taxes. And so I say let's go back to 3 rates. Let's lower our taxes, the highest rate being 28%, which was the high rate when Reagan did tax reform in 1986. And by the way, he did that in a bipartisan way with a senator, a Democratic senator from New Jersey, with Bill Bradley. They worked together on that. And let the lowest rate be at 8%, and then one rate in between. But in return for those lower rates, where everybody's rate, not just the wealthy, but everybody's rate in America would be lower, we need to get rid of those loopholes and the deductions. I'd get rid of everything except for the mortgage interest deduction for your home and charitable contribution deduction. We should keep those, but everything else is going to have to go. But in return, you get lower rates for everybody, and you can do your taxes in 15 minutes. All right? We need to do the same thing in corporate America as well. They have $2 trillion in American profits offshore, not coming back to the U.S. because we double tax their profits. One of the few countries in the world that double taxes profits, and we have the highest business tax rate in the world at 35%. How did the country who perfected the open market free enterprise system become the most unfriendly place for the free enterprise system to be practiced with a 35% business tax rate? Let's get rid of those deductions and loopholes, and let's lower it to 25%, which puts us in the middle of all the industrialized countries. Not the lowest. We don't have to be. We're the United States, but we do need to be competitive. And then let's repatriate that money in. One time, they get to bring it in, invest it in American jobs. They get taxed at 8.75%. Because 8.75% of $2 trillion is a heck of a lot more than 35% of zero, which is what's happening now. Last thing on regulation. When I became governor of New Jersey, executive order number 1 in January of 2010 was to freeze any new regulation from any department or agency in New Jersey government, and then send the lieutenant governor out to hold public hearings with business around the state for 90 days, find out which regulations had been put in effect by my predecessor that were the most onerous and the most expensive. Within the first year, we got rid of 1/3 of the regulations that my predecessor put in place, and lifted a regulatory burden off of the people and businesses of New Jersey. By the same token, I do the same thing as president. Executive order number 1 would be to freeze any new regulation by the federal government, by any department or agency for 90 days, and to look to reduce regulation there as well, and to have a net zero rule on regulation. You want to issue 1,000 pages of new regulation? You got to get rid of 1,000 pages of new regulation so we don't add to the beast. Because remember this, last year the Obama administration, 81,000 pages of new regulation in 1 year. The most ever by any administration in American history. His own Small Business Administration says that the cost of federal regulation today on small businesses like this one here, $10,000 per employee per year. Well, no wonder jobs aren't growing at the rate we'd want them to. They're paying that hidden tax on top of the highest taxes in the civilized world. So we need to do something different. Those are the things I would do. Those are the priorities I would set. Entitlement reform, which I talked about, tax and regulatory reform, and then rebuilding our alliances around the world by face-to-face personal meetings with our most important allies to let them know that they finally once again have a president who says what he means and means what he says, and the Barack Obama era is over. That's the top three I would do.